My toxic trait is that I think that I can do anything. And by anything, I do mean anything. Whenever I was growing up, I had both parents, and they always told me that I could literally do anything that I put my mind to. So naturally, I did. Anything that I've ever attempted, I just kind of have this idea in my head that no matter what, I should be able to do this because my parents told me I could do anything, and I believe them because they're my parents, and why would they lie to me? So this is my first attempt at making a beer stein. I've made a ton of river tables. I've made a ton of charcuterie boards in the past using epoxy resin. This is actually my main business, is making these boards, and these tables. So I figured if I could make a table and a charcuterie board with resin and wood, I should be able to pretty much make anything out of resin and wood, because the hard part is actually the resin pouring, but that's not actually the case in this instance. The hard part was actually doing all of the minor cuts and making this cup. But because I have this idea that I can do anything I put my mind to, I went ahead and attempted it first try without even doing a test run with any kind of test materials. I just went kind of balls to the wall, and I was like, oh, I guess I'll be able to do it. And I actually knocked it out. I actually got it done. But I wouldn't suggest this approach to anybody else. If you haven't been doing resin for a long time, or you haven't been doing woodworking for a long time, it's probably better to make some test pieces, maybe out of some cheaper material, rather than immediately use epoxy resin or whatever you're using and attempt to build something without ever having built it before. But I figured I had the idea on how to do it the best way from watching a couple YouTube videos, and it didn't seem that hard. I had all the tools to be able to do it, so I figured, might as well just give it a try and see what happens, and not even try to make a test piece. Let's just go with the main material right off the bat. And here you see me cutting the grooves for actually not the grooves, but the angles for the staves that are going to make up the beer stein. And I had to cut them at, I think, 62.5 degrees. So I have 8 I think they're called staves. I don't know. I think they're called staves, but I had 8 staves. I had to make a circle, so that means that I had to make 360 degrees out of 8 staves. So to figure that out, I took 360, divided it by 8, which got me 45. I have 2 sides on each stave, so if you take that and then divide that by 2, then you get 22 and a half. And then if you remove 90 or 22 and a half from 90 degrees, which is where the table saw blade starts at, you get 62 and a half or 63 and a half, whatever it said on there, that's what you get. And I figured, it's simple math. It should work out. And it did work out in the end. And there's definitely some things that I learned along the way, but I don't think that this approach is it's not a good idea. You should probably figure out if you can actually make the thing first before you go and attempt to make it out of the material you want to make it out of. It's always better to do a test run. I just have, like I said, a toxic trait where I just think I can do everything. So I figure, let's go ahead and give it a try with this material that I want to use as the end material. And if it doesn't work out, I'll just scrap it, throw it away, and try again. So this is a good way to waste material if that's what you're into. I'm not really super into it, but sometimes you just kind of got to go with your gut. And right here you see me trimming up the edge of the piece. I had to trim the top and the bottom to make them completely flat, because whenever you do a glue up, things are going to shift, things are going to move. There's not a lot you can do about that. So you have to cut the ends off. Right here I am putting epoxy on the inside of the beer stein to make sure that it is sealed and safe for drinking. And actually this handle was the hardest part of it. So I don't know if it's the hardest part, but it caused me the most problems, and it's only because of my own stupidity and not necessarily anything else. But I had the piece of cut off myrtle that I found from the actual Stein, the cup build, and I decided to make the handle out of that. And as you can see here, I've got a 1/2-inch bandsaw blade, which is way too big to make this curve cut. So I don't even know. I didn't have any smaller bandsaw blades available, unfortunately. And my bandsaw is a little bit weird. I have a 12-inch Craftsman bandsaw, which is kind of older. I want to say it's like an early 2000s model. I'm not 100% sure because I got it out of some guy's storage unit for $150, which I thought was a steal. But they're not the most common bandsaw blade size. It's 89.5 inches, which if you have a bandsaw, you know that's a pretty weird size. Nobody in the area sells them, unfortunately. I always have to order them on the internet. So I only had this 1/2-inch size that I use for resawing. And even the worst part is it was pretty dull. So I've been burning through wood lately trying to get it resawn because this blade is like, I don't know, it's probably like a year old or something like that, and it's never been sharpened. So unfortunately, that's just kind of how. That's a situation. That's what happened. So here you see me trimming off the ends. I cleaned up with the spindle sander a little bit, and then I made some kind of grooves to make the handle more ergonomic. So I used a spindle sander to basically carve out some grooves in the top and bottom of the internal of the handles. I mean, it feels a little bit better in your hand. So the idea behind it was accurate. I mean, it was a good idea whenever I came up with it. But here we're going to do some roundovers on the edges of the handle, and as you can see, the router bit is burning the crap out of the myrtle wood. I probably need some new router bits. This is a cheap set that I got from Amazon. It's probably like Chinese or something like that, and I've had it for a few years, so it's definitely time to upgrade the router bits. The snap ring on my router table stopped working. I have the skill router table, and I have a Rockler Masterlift 2 sitting in a box, but I'm waiting to do a new build on my worktop before I install that. And my buddy Austin over at Woodcraft actually is selling his old router table setup, so I'm thinking about just grabbing that from him because I really don't want to build my own router table. I don't feel like doing it. And his is really nice. The only thing that it doesn't have is defense, and obviously he's going to keep the lift for himself. But as far as router tables go, it's pretty decent. So I think that I would like to remove it from the work table where it is currently and just have kind of a separate cabinet just for it. All of my router bits are just in an old fishing box, like a tackle box, and they get kind of rusted and they're all kind of jumbled in there. So it would be nice to have a dedicated space, a dedicated cabinet for my router table so that, I can keep my bits together and they don't get rusted, and I know where everything is. And I want to get away from having it in my worktop because it's a little bit annoying, and the lift doesn't work that great anymore. Whenever I bought the thing, I'm not saying anything negative about the skill router table. For a beginner, that is a great purchase. The router that comes with it is pretty strong. I think it's a 10 amp. I want to say it's like a 1.5 horse, but they don't tell you the horsepower for skill routers, like not the newer ones. They just have like 10 amp, 14 amp, stuff like that. But I've never really had a problem running anything through it. I don't do a ton of router table work, but I feel like I would probably do more if I had a better router table setup. So I'm looking forward to replacing that skill with a new router lift and a new router table. Right here, I'm going to go ahead and trim up the handle to make sure that it was flush using my micro jig gripper. And I wasn't sure how I was going to attach the handle. I didn't think about the handle beforehand. So since I didn't think about how to attach it, I decided that the best thing would be to do is to screw it and glue it. So took it over to the drill press, drilled some countersink holes out of a 3/8 inch bit because I had a 3/8 inch maple dowel laying around that I was going to use to plug the hole. And I think that this was the right move because I don't know how else. I was going to just attach it with glue or resin and just kind of use a rubber band and wrap it around it to hold it in place. But my buddy said that it would be really, really easy to snap the handle off. And he's probably right. I'm pretty sure that the end grain of the handle to the face grain of the beer stein would probably not make the best bond, and most likely it would probably snap off eventually. I mean, let's apples to apples, it would have broken off. That was a terrible idea. So I decided to use this 3/8 inch bit, drill out some holes, and then we'll drill out some smaller holes for the actual screws. And I did kind of mess one part of this up, and I had already plugged the hole, and there was nothing I could do about it at that time. You'll see it in a minute whenever I start screwing it. But here I'm just kind of lining it up. I didn't do any measurements on this. I just kind of eyeballed it. I figure, you don't have to measure everything. I know that everybody says that you have to measure everything, and whenever you see people making videos on YouTube, they literally measure everything. But sometimes you can get away with just eyeballing stuff. And over the years of my life, I feel like I have done a good job of eyeballing shit. If you could eyeball resin, let's say I don't have a measuring cup available, or all of my cups are kind of gross, I eyeball resin all the time, and it works out. I've never had a problem where I had improper ratio on resin. You could eyeball stuff. It's okay. Everything doesn't have to be perfect and precise and exact. I know that you shouldn't eyeball things. I'm not saying that you should do it, but you can do it. It's in you. You have the ability to do that. I don't know why I took so long on this scene whenever I was drilling this stuff out. Everything else kind of in this video was a little bit faster. Maybe I just thought the drill looked really, really cool, and I just wanted to drag these parts out for some reason. I'm not sure. I did get a new iPhone 17, so I am able to record video a lot closer and clear. Before, I had an old iPhone 13, which probably was holding me back from making videos, honestly, because the camera on that thing was really, really terrible, and it was hard to get a good shot. And I can't afford like a cool vlogging camera right now or any of that cool equipment. As you can see, I have older tools, and I'm not one of those fancy YouTubers with a big, beautiful, perfect shop. I'm just a small guy, Everybody starts differently. Some people get the saw stop and get the 14-inch Laguna bandsaw and the 8-inch helical head jet jointer and 15-inch Powermatic helical head planer right off the bat. They get all the best tools, and they don't even want to start a project until they have all of these tools. But I just grew my tools over the years. I started about 7 years ago, just messing around, watching stuff on YouTube and figuring I could probably do that. And I just started buying tools and slowly collecting tools. And I don't have the best tools, but over time, they work for me. And that's kind of all that really matters. You don't have to have the nicest stuff on the planet to do woodworking. Older tools that you can get off Facebook Marketplace, a lot of times they work just as good as the newer tools. Obviously, they're not going to have the same features. Safety is a big thing. That's why I think a lot of people have the saw stop, is because they're worried about cutting their finger off, which is a valid fear. But you don't have to have the nicest tools to make cool stuff. And right here, I'm going to go ahead and do a water test. This was the second water test. I actually did one before this, and I got a couple leaks. So I filled those with CA glue off camera. I didn't film it. But this is the second one after I had all of the little holes filled. And it looks pretty good. I didn't get any seep out, any seepage, nothing like that. So this thing will be usable. And like I said, I did seal the inside with some epoxy resin. So you'll have to wait about 30 days for that resin to fully cure before you can use it. But it is FDA approved, so it is food safe. And this is probably more of a showpiece. I don't think that this is something that you would drink out of every single day. I couldn't imagine drinking out of it every day, but something that you have in like your man cave or on your mantle or near your bar, and people are like, "Oh, look at that, that's cool," and then you pick it up and say, "Hey, look, I can drink out of it," and it's a cool thing because I'm pretty sure that, like I said, they don't exist. Like this is, I don't know that this is the absolute first river table beer stein ever made by any human ever, but I looked around on Etsy and I'm pretty sure that I didn't see any. I didn't see any other ones other than this. So, I think that this is the first one ever made. I don't know. This is definitely the first one on YouTube. I've seen some other beer stein builds, but never one with a river table wrapping around and see-through. So I feel pretty good about that, honestly. I like doing things for the first time. And this is another example of whenever I just eyeballed it. I didn't, doing those pilot holes, I didn't line up anything. I didn't measure anything. I just kind of eyeballed it, and, it worked out great. So you don't have to be so precise. I mean, if you want to be precise, be precise. But for me, I just kind of like to wing it. I'm a wing it kind of guy. And this is where the part where I was talking about where I messed up is I screwed the handle to it, and then I went ahead and doweled the holes, but I had forgotten to glue it. And I don't think that this is going to work out negatively in the long run anyway. I think that the handle should hold no matter if it had glue on it or not, but I did forget to put the glue on it, and I was kind of sad about that because I wanted it to be a forever kind of thing, but I guess now it makes it a little bit more serviceable. You could drill out some of those dowels and remove the screws, and if you needed to put a new handle on it, I guess you could. So I used Rubio Monocoat for the outside of this beer stein. I wanted the wood to amber up a little bit more. This is some myrtle wood from Oregon, which is kind of rare. I live in Florida, and I've never even seen this wood here before, ever. This was my first time working with it, so I kind of had no idea what was going to happen. But it looks pretty good. It worked out. Even though it's your first time, sometimes you just got to try stuff. So this was my first attempt at a river table beer stein, and I think it turned out great. I'm going to go ahead and give this to a client of mine who I built a bar top for, it's actually a waterfall bar top out of some laurel oak, and it's got a cool black river down the center, and he's got his beer tap sticking out of it. And I figured for my first time making this project, usually I give away my first attempt at a project, and I kind of knocked this one out of the park, honestly. So I'm going to go ahead and give that to him probably today or tomorrow, but let me know what you think in the comments. I think that this beer stein came out beautiful, and I'm super happy with it. And thanks for watching. Look out for more. Appreciate you. Love you. Peace.